Who wouldn't want to grow zinnias when you're surrounded by this much beautiful summer colour? They're annual flowers, which means they only grow for a single summer season, but they're worth the little bit of effort that's involved in growing them. You get tall ones and short ones, compact varieties, doubles, singles, a whole range of different delights. To give of their best, zinnias really need to be grown in full sun. That way they'll make plenty of growth, which will produce lots and lots of colourful flowers. They're also pretty much amenable to any soil. They can grow on thin acid sand as well as heavy clay. The only thing I would say is make sure you put in lots of organic matter into that soil before you plant them. Thankfully, zinnias are pretty easy to care for. They just need plentiful amounts of water during the growing season until they're big enough to start coming into flower. And as soon as they're at that sort of mature height and start flowering, then you can ease back on the watering unless it gets really dry, in which case keep adding water to keep them going and alive and pumping out the flowers. They benefit from a little bit of feeding during the growing season, and I tend to use a high potash feed. You could either use tomato fertiliser, liquid tomato fertiliser, or a couple of handfuls of sulphate of potash just scattered around the plants just to keep them pumping out those flowers. The next thing you need to do is make sure that you enjoy the flowers indoors. So regularly harvest the blooms, come down to a nice long stem length so you've got something to arrange in the vase when you come to indoors, and just snip them off. And you can see that lovely long stem on these tall varieties. Pop those straight into a bucket of water or a tin of water, just so that they don't dry out while you're harvesting them. The other thing to do is to deadhead any that have faded that you've missed out on before you've managed to harvest the blooms. That way you'll keep the flowers coming. Growing zinnias from seed is pretty straightforward. They germinate well, they grow into little plants very quickly, and it's a really cheap way to produce new plants for your garden to fill your garden with summer colour. And so I like to sow them into a terracotta pot for zinnias, and I've got a mixture here of equal parts by volume of peat-free compost and a fine horticultural grit. Use that just to fill that terracotta pot, overfill it, and then use a straight edge piece of wood to just start in the middle and strike off from side to side so you've got a nice even filling of the pot. Then hold the pot firmly in both hands and tap it 3 times on the bench. That just settles the compost down away from the rim and makes it easy to water into, and also somewhere to have a little bit of extra compost over the top when you come to cover them. If you buy a new packet, you'll find that it comes in a picture packet with a foil inside, and then tap some of those seeds into the palm of your hand. You'll find a lot of seeds in the packet. Don't use them all at once. You probably only want to sow about 10 or 12 seeds into this pot of this size. And then take a pinch of the seed between your thumb and forefinger and just gently place the seeds. These are quite easy to see. Place the seeds evenly over the surface of the compost. So then use a little bit of your spare compost mix, fold your hands together flat, and then use your hands rubbing them together to just put a little bit of that compost just to cover those seeds. Tap the sides of the pot, water that, give it a good slug of water with a rose attached to a watering can, then leave it to drain and pop this onto a warm kitchen windowsill somewhere where it will germinate really quickly. You should get the little baby plants coming up in about 10 days with zinnias, and then the baby plants will start to grow, and then you can take each individual one out into its own pot, grow them on for about 3 or 4 weeks, ready to plant out for a summer of colour. Buying seed from the garden centre is all very well, but if you want to be really frugal, then you can save your own seed from the crop of zinnias that you've got. Leave a few of the flowers on towards the end of the season, leave them to fade and die back on the plants, and they'll start to produce these seeds that you can see here. And these, as they start to dry on the plants, can be pulled off quite easily and then popped into a paper bag, and that way you'll have free plants for your garden next season. Thankfully, because zinnias aren't woody plants, they don't need anything in the way of pruning really. Cut the stems down at the end of the growing season once they've been cut back by the frost, but leave the roots in the ground because they will gradually rot down and re-release any nutrients that they've got inside them back into the soil for next year. The top growth can be taken away, put on the compost heap and rotted down to make really good compost. There aren't many problems that zinnias suffer from, thankfully, other than the fact that they might get a bit of mildew late in the season when they get very dry at the roots, and you'll see a fluffy grey meal on the surface of the leaves. Nothing really much that you could do other than perhaps taking out some of the oldest plants, thinning them out so you get a better air circulation through them. You also find that they get aphids early in the season when the aphids are looking for a free salad, if you like. They're looking for something to suck the sap out of. So you can handpick those off to cure the problem. And then the only other thing is when they're tiny little seedlings, sometimes they get grazed by slugs and snails. Variety-wise, if you want something tall that you can use for cut flowers, then there's a really good just general mix variety called Giant Mix with a range of colours in it. If you want a single colour variety, then I would go with something like Envy, which is the most amazing lime green, and you could mix Envy in with this mixture to get that lime greeniness in there as well for your cut flowers. And then for a compact variety that's suitable for growing in pots and containers, try Zahara with its beautiful compact form and masses of beautiful single orange blooms. Now, I love zinnias, and I'm sure there are plenty of other people that do too. For me, it's that clever combination between something like a dahlia and a cosmos, all mashed up and coming together in this beautiful ruffled effect that zinnias really exemplify. But look at the amount of wildlife on these flowers. They're buzzing with bees, the butterflies love them, as do all sorts of other pollinators.